Hi everyone, my name is Josh Barbour. I'm the onboarding team manager here at Insightly, and I want to welcome you to our training session on optimizing your Insightly CRM. Today we're going to dive into some of the key habits of highly effective CRM implementations, focusing on how you can enhance your CRM's performance and usability. You know, the most effective CRMs don't just capture data, they drive meaningful insights and actions. Organizations that have excelled with Insightly know that the magic truly happens when the system is tailored to fit their unique data and processes. Our goal today is to show you how to create a CRM environment that not only stores data, but transforms it into a powerful tool for decision making. So we're going to break today down into 3 different segments to really level up your CRM game. Number 1 is customizing for your data. Number 2 is then gaining better insights into your business by leveraging that data. And then 3 is streamlining process through automation. Let's dive into it. Hi everyone, welcome into our instance of Insightly. So this should be familiar to most of you. So we're going to work right now off of our organizations page. And I want to start by talking about the importance of creating custom fields. So first things first, what a field is it's a data point on one of our records. So when I click on this, you can see an organization name, a phone number, a fax. All of those things are fields. So we have some standard ones that are built out of the box. But for many of our customers, they have more unique data that either powers reporting or allows us to better segment between our different client types. So a glaring gap on the organization page to me would be their industry, right? If I ever wanted to be able to create reporting around where our opportunity wins are coming from by industry, currently there's not a way for me to do so within the system. So maybe I want to create a custom field for industry. Now, some of you in the audience might already be doing something like this, but perhaps you're doing it in the form of tags, right? These little things over here on the side where I can quickly and I can easily tag somebody. So let's say we had an industry of technology. Great, I would tag them as technology, and now I can see that. Some of the problem that we deal with tags is they're not a standardized way of doing things. One, we're not telling our users that we need to capture that information by calling it out on the record itself. And 2, they're a free text field. So I could have this organization tagged as technology and this organization tagged as tech. And now I've created 2 completely separate ways of tracking that information. So part of the value of doing things through custom fields is not only does it tell our users, hey, you should be putting this information in, but it also allows us to standardize it by using stuff like drop-down menus. Not only is that going to standardize and enable our reporting to a pretty significant degree, but it's also going to increase adoption by making it clear what's expected of them and by making it easier to put that data into the system by pre-filling those options in the form of a drop-down menu. So let's discuss how we can build some of those customizations. So first we're going to navigate to the top right to where our profile icon is, and we're going to head down to System Settings. From there, we're looking to customize what we call objects. So on the left side over here in the bar, those are our objects. So we're going to head to Objects and Fields under the Data Definitions section here. And we're going to start with an organization. So I'm going to click on my organization. Perfect. And when that happens, it's going to come up with an object management menu here. And we're simply going to click on Object Fields because we're looking to add a new field. In the very top right of that new screen, you'll see that there is a red button that says New Field. I can click that, and it's going to come up with an entire list of different field types that we can do. So I can automatically create a number. If you're on our enterprise plan level, you can use custom code to spit out calculated values. I could have a checkbox, I could have a date, date time, so on and so forth, right? In this instance, again, we're looking to create an industry field, and I want to standardize that by saying they're in these specific industries. So in that case, I'm going to do a drop-down menu. So great, I select drop-down, and then I click Next. Now I'm going to name this field, so I'm going to say Industry. And then that's automatically going to create the field name. This is essentially creating the code on the back end. So when we look at our API, the field name is what this field is called on the back end. So now we're going to put in our values. So great, I'll say technology, medical, and dental. Why not? We're going to create two different things for medical. Now I can choose to sort values alphabetically. I can allow searching through options. This is especially good if you have a ton of options in the dropdown. Highly recommend that. And then you can also set a default value. So if you work with consistent industries and you want to cut down on clicking, well, great. You can set a default value for that. And then the other great thing here is you can make it required. So we'll go over how to do that once we add it into our page layout. But great, so here's my custom field. I'm going to save it. So now that's created a brand new custom field. Now we just want to make sure that it's in our page layout in a way that makes logical sense. So in this object management menu, we're then just going to go to page layouts here. And then we're going to click our page layout that we'd like this to apply to. And then you'll see industry on the left side over here. And I can just drag and drop that into my page layout wherever I'd like. If I hover over that field on the right side, I can either remove it from the page layout. So, hint, hint, facts, nobody uses it anymore. If you want to get rid of that, cool, trash it. Now you've made it easier for your team to see exactly what it is that's important to them, right? Cuts down on the amount of data entry that they think they have to do. But let's say we want to make this a required field so that anytime somebody creates an organization, they also have to input an industry field. Well, great. I'm going to click this little gear icon, and I can now make that a required field. So now you'll see that little orange asterisk shows up. That indicates that it's necessary for us to actually put that in to save it. So now I'm going to save my page layout, and if I go back to an organization and I click on Clampett Oil and Gas, there that industry field is. And if I try to edit this field, you'll see that I can't save it because I don't have an industry field. So now I can go through and say, okay, great, Clampett Oil and Gas is in technology. Another great challenge that custom fields can help solve for in some of our most effective use cases is streamlining communication across teams. So let's say I work in an industry where I sell a physical product and I need to distribute that out to the client. Well, great. How do I translate from the sales to the distribution team what needs to be sent? Well, here I've created a products purchased field so that I can say, great, this person has purchased product A and product C. Now, how do I translate that over? Let me show you. So step one, we're going to go back into our objects and fields by clicking System Settings, Objects and Fields. And in this case, I've made that field on the opportunity. So we're going to go to the opportunity. We're going to head to Object Fields. And then you'll be able to find that Products Purchased Custom field. Let me just move my head really quickly so I can access that and show you. Cool. So you can see Products Purchased here. You'll see there's a little 3-dot button right over here called the Actions button. So if I click that, I have the option to clone this field. And what that does is it creates a copy of that field on whatever object I select from this drop-down menu. In this instance, I want it to be a project. I click Next, and now it's going to enable and create a new copy of that field on the project record. And I just save it. Just the same way as you've done with other custom fields, you're going to add it to your page layout. Boom, we can see here, products purchased. And I'm just going to bring it up here, just for better visibility. Perfect. We've now saved that. But that's not all. Now we need to make sure that when we convert an opportunity into a project, that it's going to map that information over into the appropriate fields. So we're going to go to System Settings. Let me move my head one more time. And we're going to go down into Opportunity Conversion. So what happens when we go into Opportunity Conversion is on the left side over here, it shows us all of our fields on the opportunity, and then it shows us the fields that relate to that on the project side. So here, I have that products purchased field, and if I click this drop-down menu, I can then map it to the custom field that we made for products purchased, and I can save that. So now if I were to go back to my opportunity, here, where they've purchased products A and C, if I click my Actions menu to convert to project, and it creates that new project, set my pipeline, boom. Now that data seamlessly transitions over onto the records that our distribution team is going to be working on. Streamlining communication, making it easier for people to get things done faster, and enabling our teams better. So now that we know how to create custom fields, I challenge all of you to go through, take a look at your data, take a look at what's important to you and what reporting you'd like to create, and begin building out those custom fields. Because it'll ultimately enable us to leverage what we're going to talk about next. So we're going to talk through how to create reporting to give us insights and actionable takeaways from our data. We're going to talk about, if you're on our professional plan, how to create dashboard cards to be able to visualize our data and give us a quick health check-in, as well as ways in which we can automate. So let's dive into it. We're going to start with reporting. So on the left side over here, you'll see that there is a reports object. We're going to click on that. And let's say, using that example of opportunities that have been won by industry. Here I can choose the types of reports that I want to create. We have templates in our standard reports, so I can click on my different objects. In this case, we'll create an opportunity report. And in this case, since I'm looking to pull something that comes from the organization, I can go to an opportunity linked items report because it allows me to pull information from a different record other than our opportunity. If I only wanted to pull information directly from our opportunity, then I could create an opportunity report. Or if I wanted to create a report on emails that have been saved to opportunities or tasks that have been completed against opportunities, then I have this activity report. So we're going to focus on a linked items report. How do we leverage that industry information to create actionable takeaways for us? So let's create an opportunity linked items report. And my goal here is to see which industries are the most valuable to us. Which industries are we winning the most revenue from, right? So I'm going to look at, maybe I don't care about the date itself. I care about lifetime, what's happened. But I only want to look at one opportunities because I'm focusing on the ones that have, paid us money. So I'm going to say that my state for my opportunity equals 1. Boom. Now here's all of my opportunities. And then I can go through, and on the left side over here, any of the fields that I can pull into this report are available here. So let's say I wanted to pull in industry. I can type in the search bar, as I did just now, and then I can drag and drop that over here. Now we'll move my head, and you can see, well, hey, there it is for technology. The other filter that I'm going to put on here is that the link type equals organization. I only care about seeing the organizations. I don't care about the other stuff. Great. We're going to get rid of this grouping. And now if I wanted to be able to see what is my wins based on industry, now I can take this little column right here And I can drag and drop that up here. And now I can see that I've had 1 for technology and 2 for medical. And there's a couple of things that we can do here. One, with our grouping, I can add summary fields, as we've already done. So I can click Add Summary Field, and let's say instead of seeing a sum of the total amount of one revenue, let's say I wanted to focus on which industry gave me the highest ACV. So I could then say Opportunity Value Average, and then I could say ACV. And now you'll see that there is an additional summary field here under that opportunity value column that tells me what the average is. So total for medical, we've got 450,000, but our ACV is only 225,000. The other thing that you can do once you've grouped is you can also add a chart to this. So in the top right, you'll see there's an Add Chart to Report. So I can choose the chart type that I like. In this case, why not go with just a beautiful old pie chart? So now I can say one revenue by industry. Cool. And then I can choose as my pie values any of those summary fields that are up here. So if I wanted to see how many opportunities are being won, then I could use record count, because that's going to count how many records there are for that. So you can see here there are 2, and there's 1 for technology. If what I care about is revenue as opposed to record count, then I can utilize total value. And now you can see that that is a little bit different of a split, right? Because technology has a higher ACV than medical. So even though this is just 1 and this is 2, that split is a little bit more even, right? So depending upon what's valuable to you, you can choose to make those decisions. Cool. We'll go with 1 revenue, and then we can save that report. 1 revenue by industry. Give it a nice little label. We can choose to toss it into different folders. We can share it. And then the lovely thing, this is my favorite part of reports, is once you've created it and run that report, you can schedule that report or you can set an alert. So this is automation that's available to you. So if I schedule the report, I can run that report and I can email it to myself and other people. So great, we're going to send this to Andrea Ladigiani and Sarah Gradolf. And we're going to send that out on a weekly basis on Monday. So now at the start of the week, we're going to get a report that says, here's what our industry one revenue data is. And that's going to start every single Monday. So that's how we create a report, as well as automate and schedule it and have it automatically delivered to us. That'll send you out a CSV that you can download. It'll also include a link to bring you right back here into the CRM, which I highly encourage, because then you can click into those opportunities and take a look at more of the data. So that's our reporting. Up next, for those of you on our professional plan, let's discuss how you can take that data and visualize it so that every time that you log in, you can see the health of your business. So to start off, again, just with reports, we're going to head over to our side menu here to dashboards. And we're going to create a new dashboard for ourselves. Best practice dashboard. So we label it and we choose who gets to see this dashboard. So I can share that just for me. I can share it with everyone. Or if I'm using advanced permission, then I can use my role hierarchy to share it with just specific roles within the organization. In this case, I'm going to be selfish and I'm going to make it just for me. Perfect. Once I've done that, I can either choose to add cards from our existing library of cards. So I can click choose a card here, and you can see all of the pre-existing custom cards, as well as you can click this list view and you can see all of the standard cards. For this, we're actually going to create a brand new card. So this is one that I think most businesses who operate in a sales process should probably have, which is looking at our forecast pipeline, as well as we're going to create two cards really quickly. We're going to create a forecast revenue pipeline, and we're going to create a one revenue rolling 12-month cycle so that you can see the peaks and valleys in your sales year. So cool. We're going to click Create a New Card. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to choose our data source. So any of the objects that we have, we can utilize as a data source. In this case, we want opportunities. So that's exactly where we want to go. Then we want to choose our filters. So if I was trying to filter for stuff that is forecast to close, I'm going to remove the filters that are already here. And what I'd look at is there's a standard field inside of the system called a forecast close date. So I might leverage something like that and say forecast close date. And then if I click that filter, I can then change some of these operators and I could say is not empty. But on top of that, I also want to look at stuff that hasn't been won or lost already. So that means that I need to filter for my current state and say that my current state equals open. Boom. There we go. So now you'll see that it says no value here. That's because what's currently there is actual close date. Well, these things haven't been closed yet, so actual close date should be no value. So we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to get rid of this. And what we're going to do now is we are going to search for our forecast close date again. And I just do that by typing into the search bar. And then I can drag and drop that into my x-axis. And then lastly, I want to look at the revenue that's open. And there's two ways of approaching this. One, I can look at expected revenue. And what that does is it takes our probability of winning and it multiplies it by our opportunity value. So it gives me a weight. So if I had a $10,000 opportunity, that's 50% probability to win, then my weighted value, my expected revenue is $5,000. If you don't want to do that and you instead just want to do opportunity value, great, then we can do that. And we can just drag and drop opportunity value into our x-axis. From there, we can either choose to do just the same as we did with those summary fields, a count, a minimum, a maximum, an average. In this case, we want to sum it up. We want to add all of our opportunity values up. And then we can change our format. So instead of just being a number, I could make it a currency at that point. Boom. And the last thing that we'll see here is that dates, by default, are formatted as days, which makes sense, right? A date is a day, a month, and a year. But we don't want that. We want to be able to see by month what this looks like. So over here on our chart properties, you can see that there is x-axis and y-axis. So our forecast close date is in our x-axis. And if I click that, I can actually change the date format. And now I can make it a month. And now instead of having two values for January, everything just falls under one. So I can see for January, we're forecasting to close $770,000 worth of revenue. And for December, $322,000. Obviously, these are pretty exceptional numbers, doing pretty well from a management perspective over here. Just kidding. And then I can type in my label, right? And I can say forecast revenue by month. Save it. One thing that I always like to do with these as well is I like to toss a drill path on this. So what I'll do is I will click the Actions menu, and then I can edit a drill path. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to click on those values and then dive into either another chart or a table. What I frequently like to do is add on a table. So on the right side over here, I can choose the different charts that I have available to me. So in this case, I'm going to choose a table. And now I can pull in any of that information that I think is really, really valuable, like the opportunity name and the forecast close date and maybe our pipeline stage and maybe our probability. And then I can label this chart details. And this is huge for me. I use this day to day when it comes to managing my team, so highly recommend this. So boom, here we go. Here's my dashboard card that shows me that. If I click on that card, I can then interact with this data, and I can click on January, and I can then see all of that information, right? So it allows me to drill into all of that data to better understand what's going on. I mentioned that we were going to do another one, which is our one revenue. So we're going to click Create New Card yet again. And please feel free to build along with me if this is something that you think is going to be valuable, which personally, again, if you have a sales organization, I highly recommend. So we're going to clear our filters again. We're choosing our data source, which is opportunities. And in this case, I want to look at, we type in state to our search bar, and we find current state. We drag that over to our filters, and we choose 1. And then the next thing that we're going to look at is the timing of that, because obviously you might have opportunities that were won like 3 years ago. We don't want it to be crazy. We want it to be something that we can actually visualize. So I'm going to take actual close date, and I'm just going to type actual close date in here. And I'm going to drag that into the filters. And I'm going to say actual close date is equal to. Then if I hover over this I on the right side of the little date field, it gives me dynamic date ranges. So for instance, I could say the last 365 days. Or I could say this year, whatever date range makes sense to you. We're going to go with last 365 days. I like having a rolling 12-month cycle. That way, when you go from December into January, your dashboard cards don't just like go blank, or whatever you set your fiscal year start date to. So great. And then just the same way we did before, we want to evaluate what's the date that we want here. In this case, we want actual close date, which we have here. And then I just want to reformat that into being a month. So I can see month over month what our one revenue has looked like. And then I can get rid of bid amount, and I can take opportunity value, bring that in, make it a currency. And there we go. And now I can say one revenue month over month last 365 days. There's a lot of cool things that you can do with dashboards. I highly recommend playing around with this. It's a pretty intuitive piece of our platform. And especially when it comes to motivating teams, utilizing KPIs and understanding from a performance management perspective where somebody is, these dashboard cards make it incredibly easy. So this is another way that, again, once we've built out those custom fields, now we can leverage the power of that data to give us whatever KPIs we're looking to measure towards. Next up, let's discuss ways in which we can automate. So there are 2 ways in which we can automate tasks, which when dealing with automation is kind of the most common. Number 1 is what's called an activity set, and number 2 is workflow automation. We're going to start with activity sets. Workflow automation is only available on our professional plan level and above. So for those of you who are on basic or standard or plus, activity sets will be the primary way in which you're going to be able to automate. So let's dive into it. So activity sets are specific to pipelines. So they'll be available on opportunities and on projects. So if I look at an opportunity here, we have our standard out-of-the-box pipeline. And you'll see that on the qualification stage, there are 2 activities that are associated with it. That's that 2 right there. So if I click out of that into needs analysis and I go back into it, you can see that every time I enter that pipeline stage, it generates a task to discuss the budget and creates an event on a calendar, right? So you can customize these to be whatever it is that you'd like. So for instance, let's say that I wanted to create a habit within my sales team to follow up on proposals after they've been sent out to the client. Well, great. I could go into system settings, and then under automation, you'll see that there's a section called activity sets. So I can create a new one, and we're going to call this proposal follow-up. And then you'll see that activity sets are available for contacts, organizations, opportunities, projects, and for leads. They can just only automatically be applied on opportunities and projects. So for contacts, organizations, and leads, you have to manually apply them. So for this proposal follow-up, we're going to click the checkbox here for opportunities. We're going to add that. Next, we're going to click the edit button on the far right side. And now it's going to allow us to choose our activity type. So I can either do an event or I can create a task. So I could create a task here that says follow up on proposal. And I want that to happen. I want to choose a due date. I want that to happen 5 days after we enter the proposal stage. And then if I want to, I can skip Sundays and Saturdays if you don't work weekends. We can add a category on here, so you can see that there's a follow-up category already in here. And then I can assign that to a specific person. So if there's one person who's always going to be assigned that duty, like for instance, let's say we had an activity set that generated an invoice. We wanted to have a task that generated that. Well, great. I could assign that to a person on my billing team. If, however, it's going to be dynamic, meaning that, like, let's say we have a sales team and that person who's working the opportunity is going to be different for each opportunity, then we want to go with choose when applied. That allows whoever moves it from into that pipeline stage is going to be assigned that task by default. That person can choose to reassign that, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. So great, we're going to add that new activity, and now we've got a task to follow up on a proposal. So we've created that, and now the next step of that is tying that into our pipeline. So in my menu over here, I'm just going to type in pipeline to the search bar. Under data and management, you'll see pipelines. And for our opportunity pipeline, we want to add that activity set. So where it says opportunity pipeline, I'm going to edit the stages here. And on this proposal stage, I'm going to edit that. And on the right side, you'll see there's a column that says activity set. I can then click the drop-down menu for proposal follow-up, click save, and now that's been added to my pipeline. So if I go back to my opportunity pipeline, let's take this one right here. Now you'll see there's a 1 next to that proposal pipeline. If I click that, you'll see that follow-up proposal shows up here. I can reassign that to another user if need be. But in this case, I'm the person who's responsible for it, so I want to get that task. I click Change the Stage, and now on the Activity tab of this opportunity, that task has been generated with a due date that's 5 business days from now. And then at any point in that time, I can complete that and move it into past activity. So this is applicable, again, on opportunities and on projects. It's a really great way, if you have a team who's unfamiliar with process, to kind of hold their hand through the process, make sure that they understand exactly how to do things, by giving them each step of the process in a nice little bite-sized chunk. So next we're going to dive into workflow automation. Again, this is for people who are on our professional plan level. What's great with this is it works a little bit more dynamically and can take in a lot more factors than pipelines. So for instance, let's say I wanted to create a follow-up for opportunities that were suspended. So if I wanted to suspend an opportunity, and I wanted to reopen it 30 days after it had been suspended to reinvestigate that opportunity to see if they're ready to move forward, right? So, again, I can head into System Settings. And under Automation, you'll see there is Workflow Automation at the very top. We're going to create a new workflow process. And I'm going to say this is a suspension follow-up. And then we choose the record type that we're going to apply this to. In this case, we're going to use an opportunity. Next, we can choose when to evaluate for that criteria. So we could say once when the record is created. That doesn't make a lot of sense here because an opportunity would be created and then eventually it would be suspended, right? So it's not always going to match that criteria when it's created. In fact, it basically never will. So that one's basically out the gate. Not out the gate, but out of contention. Multiple times when the record is created and on every edit. So a question you might ask yourself here is, could an opportunity be suspended only one time? Or could it be unsuspended and then resuspended? Maybe. The last one is multiple times, evaluate for it anytime it's edited, but stop once the record has matched the criteria. So do we never want this to, if it gets moved into suspended, if it ever gets moved out of suspended and moved back into suspended, it would never fire off again, right? Because it's already happened one time. So I think the second option in this case makes sense. I could see a scenario where somebody unsuspends something and then resuspends it. So we save that. Next, we want to add our criteria. And in this case, I'm looking at something that's suspended. So opportunity is suspended. And now we're going to add our filter rows just the same way as we did earlier with our reports. So we're going to click that, and then we can type in current state, which is where suspended lives, right? And I can say the current state equals suspended. And that's really all I have to do when it comes to my criteria. I'm looking to follow up after a certain time after something has been suspended. Next, I can choose when I want this automation to take place. Do I want it to happen immediately, or do I want it to happen after a period of time? I want it to happen after a period of time. So I want to follow up 30 days after that opportunity is suspended. So I can type in 30, and then I can choose either days or hours, after or before, in this case after, and then any date field that's on the record itself I can utilize as a trigger. I built out a custom field for this called renewal date that I'll get into in just 1 second, that I think is a really, really powerful automation. And then we can say 30 days after the workflow criteria date. So once that opportunity is suspended, it starts a timer for 30 days. And then I can click my actions here on that time trigger. And you'll see I have the option to add a task. I can send an email. I can add a new record. I can add a new webhook if I'm integrating. I can run a Lambda function if I'm on Enterprise. Or I can update this record. In this instance, I want to add a task. So I want to create follow-up on suspension. Again, I can choose who that's assigned to. In this case, I want it to be the user responsible, right? I want it to be whoever is responsible for following up with this particular person. And then once that's generated at 30 days, I can set a due date to say this should be done within 2 days. So 30 days after the opportunity is suspended, it creates this task. That task is then due 2 days later. And then I save the task. Maybe I also want to create an email notification. I can send them an email. I will say with emails, the intention of this is for this to be an internal notification system and not necessarily something that is client-facing. So that's workflow automation. The last use case I want to show for you, and I wanted to build this out a little bit more because I think it's one of the most valuable tools that's frequently underutilized. So let's say you work in an industry that works off contracts. Let's say you're software as a service or a consulting business or anything of that nature. So a frequent use case that we deal with for workflow automation is reminding us ahead of renewals that we need to start having those conversations, right? So I built out a custom field on our opportunity called a renewal date. So I could create a new workflow process that says reminder of upcoming renewal. In this case, that's only going to happen one time, right? So, cool. And then I choose my record again, in this case an opportunity. Next, I'm going to create my criteria. So in this case, I want to look at opportunities that are won. Because if something is renewing, then the opportunity should have been won. Right? So I can say that my current state equals 1. And if I wanted to get really fancy, I could say renewal date is not empty. Boom. And some of you astute viewers might have already guessed what the next step is. We would then add a time trigger. So I could say 90 days before, and then I can leverage that custom field for renewal date. And now I can send an action and say, send an email out from the record owner to a manager, let's say, Andrea Ladigiani here. Upcoming renewal. And then I can say, great, on my email subject, alert, upcoming renewal. And then here I have the option to bring in merge tags into here. So for instance, what a merge tag is it takes data off of the record that's triggering the automation. So I could take the organization name and I could pop that in here. And so now it's going to say upcoming renewal for this organization name. And I can say, hey, Andrea, there's an upcoming renewal in 90 days for, and then down here on the body, there's an insert fields button as well, where I can do the same thing. I can insert organization name, their contract value is, and then I could insert the opportunity value. Bid amount. Perfect. Thanks. Insert record owner. Boom. Now I've created an email notification that ahead of renewal is automatically going to notify a specific person that that renewal is coming. So that's how we can leverage automation. I know that's a lot to digest. Start small with some of this stuff would be my recommendation. Really focus on the challenges that you're having on the day-to-day, be that lengthening sales processes, be that a lack of communication between teams, again, the ball getting dropped as things are transitioning between team members. Sometimes you even might want to leverage automation to celebrate wins, right? If an opportunity is won over a certain high value amount, you can have an email go out to the CEO so that the CEO can proactively congratulate the salesperson the second that's won. That wraps our training for today. Thank you all so much for sticking with me to the end. Hopefully you found that enlightening. I just wanted to highlight a couple of key takeaways that I hope you got from today. Number one, leverage custom fields to more accurately capture data important to your business. Number two, use that data to then make informed decisions by using reporting and dashboards to highlight how that data is impacting your business. And then number three, encourage the usage of the system by automating processes and surface when things slip through the cracks. Implementation is just one side of this coin. Adoption is another. And one of the key ways that we've seen positive adoption is by focusing on automation and making people's lives easier who are utilizing the system. So I want to thank you all so much for being Insightly customers. Hopefully we can help you level up your game. From this conversation, if anybody does have any questions about how to move forward, or if there are features on different plan levels that were highlighted today that you'd like to learn more about, or you just need more one-on-one consultation or training, please feel free to reach out to our sales team at sales@insightly.com, and they'll be more than happy to talk to you about how to proceed with that. But I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you.